Okay, we're ready. Take it away, Mark.
Hi guys, so happy to have you here again tonight. Tonight we have a crew from the UK who we are so delighted to hear. They include Fran Lock, Steve Eli, Richard Price, and Katy Evans-Bush. And many thanks to Katy for corralling these wonderful folk together. But before we begin with the feature, we shall start with our co-host Jeffrey Cyphers Wright, who got his MFA after studying with Allen Ginsberg. He's best known as a new romantic poet. He's also a publisher, critic, eco-activist, impresario, filmmaker, puppeteer, and artist. He is the author of 19 books of verse, including Blue Lyre and Party Everywhere. His poems have appeared in the Cafe Review, New American Writing, the Brooklyn Rail, the Hurricane Review, Posit, and many others. And more recent work appears in the anthologies Best American Poetry, New York Insiders, and Contemporary Surrealist and Magical Realist Poetry. Jeff Slater's work, a book of sonnets and artwork called Doppelgangster, is out from Mad Hat Press. He recently won the Servige and James Tate Prize, and he publishes Live Mag from New York City. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey. Thank you so much, Mark. And it's good to see you again. Mark was off recording last time and taking care of another section of his empire here. But it's nice to see you all again. And apropos of our conversation, I wanted to read from my book Doppelgangster here that Mark published. Give Mark a shout out that way there. And for starting this whole series, and this is the first reading of our new year? No, the second, that's right. Yeah, right, okay. So this is called Secretary of Dissent. Does the word dossier scare you? In the future, everyone has one. They are kept at the Ministry of Memory Reconstruction and Normative Corrections. Global warming is hokum. What rhymes with orange skin? Putin! Ha, ha. There's a new circus in town. So it's like the howler monkey and the wolf had a baby. Ha, ha. The problems of the world are ours, but we are never alone. Yeah, man. So here we are doing our own thing to keep the light, right? And speaking of light, our own sunshine, Cassandra Atherton is an award-winning prose poet and international expert on prose poetry. Her prose poetry is widely anthologized and has been translated into Japanese, Chinese, and Korean. Cassandra has published more than 30 books and is currently writing an illustrated book of prose poetry on the Hiroshima Maidens with funding from the Australia Council and the Victorian government. Cassandra co-wrote prose poetry and introduction and co-edited the anthology of Australian prose poetry, an introduction. And she co-edited the anthology of Australian prose poetry. Did I say that? I'm not sure. And she's commissioning editor for Westerly Magazine and professor of writing and literature in Melbourne, Australia, Cassandra Atherton. Yay.
Hi, thank you. I do have a poem that I'm writing for my book about Hiroshima. So this one's called Midori Naka. In the soft morning light, she makes tea for the Sakuratai troop. The curve of the teapot's handle presses on her palm as she recites her lines. Life is no more than the repeated fulfilling of a permanent desire. The small white cups are crackle glazed, their hairlines like silver scars. Walking naked under rubble, she remembers a blast as if a hot water boiler exploded. Silence. Under the stripe of bright light, her white blood cells deplete. Leaving behind the smoldering charcoal of Hiroshima, she returns by train to Tokyo. Days later, her remains are floating in 2 glass jars. Wet archive, the wrinkled and brown tissue looks like decomposing plums. I think of cherry blossom petals bruised underfoot, or the unripe fruit in bottles of plum wine. And I would like to introduce Mark Vincennes because we can do it because he's back from the recording studio. So Mark Vincennes is an Anglo-Swiss-American poet, a fiction writer, translator, editor, publisher, designer, multi-genre artist, and musician. He's published many books of poetry, translations, and fiction, including more recently The Pearl Diver of Urunmani, The King of Prussia is Drunk on Stars, and The Mayfly Codex. Forthcoming poetry collections are Spells for the Wicked with Unlikely Books, Ironclad with Spite and Dibble, and All the Tricks of Language with Dos Madres Press. No More Animal Poems is going to come out with White Pine Press. Pretty impressive. I don't know how he keeps up with it all. Mark is also a prolific translator, and he's translated from, you all know it, German, Romanian. It was going to say French, but he's added in Spanish and Icelandic. So other people have been at work translating his amazing oeuvre. He has published 12 books of translations, most recently an Audible Blue Selected Poems 1963 to 2016 by award-winning Swiss poet and novelist. He hasn't changed. We know he's Klaus Mertz. And it won the 2023 Massachusetts Book Prize for Translated Literature. His newest book of translations, Still Some Light in the House by Klaus Mertz, is forthcoming in the fall. His own work has been translated into many languages, including, the list goes on, Japanese, Chinese, Russian, French, Italian, Spanish, Romanian, Greek, German, and Icelandic. He's currently working on a novel entitled The Age of Occasions. Vincennes is editor and publisher of the Stella Mad Hat Press and publisher of New American Writing. Here we go, regulars. He's lived all over the world, from Brazil to China to Iceland to India. He was born in Matilda Hospital on the Peak in Hong Kong, but he now lives on a farm in rural western Massachusetts overlooking Herman Melville's Greylock Mountain, Melville's inspiration for Moby Dick, where there are still more cocklebur weevils, flat-headed hardwood borers, and margined leatherwings than bipedal earthlings. Just in case you were wondering. Mark, have you got a wonderful poem for us today?
This is called Acts of Magic, an Etruscan ode for Hermes Trismegistus and Billy Shankspur in 6 succinct acts. 1. A Book of Creation. Codify the storm, a catastrophe of wakes in a thunderous Shakespearean iambic quake. Or, dear Bill, tell, if you will, recount no doubt in that same alignment upon a winter's tale, the square-toed boot of semiotics, the nascent bird of the thespian tone, of music and tonalities and linguistics, in all her tongues of twisted loam. 2. That measure for measure. Or cooling off with melting ice, on a simmering summer night, Hermione might have sighed deep into her swirling porcelain cup and said, of art, for art's sake, then gold, gold too for gold's gilded sake, and scattered, sifted, sorted, plated, layered, and lacquered upon the nib of your ferocious quill pen, or the tip of your fat feathered tongue, and deep within that ever-widening grin. 3. The golden gilders out. What he said in retort was somewhere along these lines. Someone in the future shall discover these golden egg-laying geese and herd them and maneuver them for the purpose of creating a picture-perfect windstorm. And that storm will be a cyclone of Herculean proportion, unbeknownst in all the annals of volcanism. 4. The final tempest. But once he'd said, why the continual melodrama? Why such mysterious circumstances? And that strange hooded figure fleeing through those fattening days. And she said that same shadow figure was later seen in the deep end of the chambers attending the final sentencing and eventual execution. 5. The sentencing and execution. Staring back upon her lost roadways and continents, the child later spies a cricket chirping for rain in the middle of a freshly asphalted road. And high in the treetops, that dark squirrel who cracked an acorn over a cast iron fortune cackles. Civilizations hand out golden shackles and misappropriations, oily spill savanna swamp and sloshing shit swill. 6. The sacrificial altar. And here, finally she lies carved perfectly, patiently, into a cool limestone, ruminating for our future selves to uncover her many past lives. Oh no, she can't be marooned. Her tomb quietly intones. And yet, here she is, liquid and alone in an ocean of heavy stone. Will she ever be deciphered? And if so, might she be enlightening? Thank you. And I am delighted now to introduce the first of our featured poets, Fran Lock, who is the author of numerous collections of 14 poetry collections and very many chapbooks. Her most recent collections are Hyena from Poetry Bus Press, shortlisted for the T.S. Eliot Prize and for the PEN Heaney Prize, and A Disgusting Lie, further adventures through the neoliberal hellmouth from Panama Press, Spectres, Defectors, No Respecters, an omnibus of 3 previous titles. The selected new material was published by Culture Matters in late 2024. Her most recent pamphlet is The New Herbal from Blueprint and Vulgar Errors, a collection of essays exploring feral subjectivity through the lens of the medieval bestiary. And that was published by Outspoken Press last year. Fran was the Judith E. Wilson Poetry Fellow at Cambridge from 2022 to 2023, and is a commissioning editor at Radical Arts and Culture Cooperative, Culture Matters. She mostly lives in Kent with her sassy American bully, Luna. Welcome, Fran.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. I hope you can hear me all right. I've not got the best microphone in the world, so hopefully you can hear me and hopefully not hear Luna making the incidental music of licking her own backside in the background. I'm going to start with a poem I wrote on the eve of the US election. It's called Destroying Angel. The Destroying Angel is like one of the world's most toxic forms of mushroom. And when it deliquesces, it goes this hideous shade of orange. Yeah. This delicate supremacist, our cipher tonight under the fractioned moon, we wait. We are waiting for the angel, rankly warriored out of soft ground or the long expectant trench of the year. An angel, yes, the melting stench of him, and how the mouth is swollen with moist peak, and the spade splendors into pale down, dewy with rot. Oh, groggy polypore, you break beneath intrusion's tread, but spread the air is lustered with rancid spore. We have been waiting for the angel. Angels, basin saints stooped in stale light, these Teutons of the timberline will spit their felons' absolutes wetly and in the wake of rain. Cloyed into columns, railing weakly, do not be deceived. The ragged wood will cup the sluggish threat of them. The sword raised in waltz time is growing, has grown. The angel is here, sloughs off its cataract of white gold. Now the mouth is bruised open, the world transfigured brittly, bitter rusk of wing, fool's web, funeral bell, and the angel over everything. So yeah, there's that. They don't get much more cheerful than that, I'm afraid. Sorry. Somebody else will have to bring the live relief. Don't look to me. This is a poem, it's called New Build. It's about staying with my mum in her council house. It's very kind of all the exciting topics covered here, all the hashtag relatable content, and kind of walking around. And it starts with a quote, but the quote is scored through, and that quote is, "Sing whatever is well made." The estate is extending itself. There will be expiation and adjustment, and a woman, there will always be a woman. The spider, wetly sequestered in the sink, is issued with eyes, ascends. I am that spider. A spider absconds up a rope it receives back into itself. A spider consists of a spool and a crank. Poem, whatever is tightened inside of me, a bulging cable of princess hair. Today I climbed from the trash fire of failure, hung the amulets of my intention from wee steel hooks. The dead were all around me and having a whale of a time. This no place is blatant with neighbourhood. Gotnet shans on, to chib, to shiv, to chef, to shank kids, their clique of stitches, their stitch charade. To carry this, a family secret I am trying to protect and to avoid. Oh, with all my books disbound. Oh, between sequence and chaos, and oh, between text and syntax. It all comes apart. This week has been hard. The slowly received mouthful of eviction. I vacated my failure, except that I didn't. To tenant this basic unit of room, dwell in antagonized earth, rammed earth forever, beneath rafters and laths forever, scallops and rods forever, under shuggan and sod forever, under the sign of the fill in the holes with your firstborn, fill in the holes with your fist till the house is a house-shaped stocks around you and you cannot move. This I wish for you, an onslaught of wolves in latex masks. The estate is a boy in a nocturnal shirt, in a shirt he seals against touch and social work, is paraphrased, rhapsodied, paralyzed, is an endgame sustained, my catastrophic friend. If guilt is a feeling, shame is a social practice, is an architecture. There is always a man feeding the meter, conducts the coin into my open mouth, forces the coin. This week has not been easy. A tough wet verb through a windpipe. Dreamt of a wall the width of a tissue. Extrovert melodies, melodies of dismay. With his stereo told the daylight open. Blink. And the women on the train in matching statement glasses. They say complexion when they mean skin. They say how the other half live in a serviced flat when they are the other half, and I hate them. I live in a nice house now, but no, you do not know anything. The estate expands. The burnt out motherfucks of flowers, a siren. The first half of emergency is emerge, climb from the voided punk of it, blue light everywhere, pulling the delicate legs off of my vexation, until I am only a body, small crumb, stubbed out. I'm going to read a couple from the Sassy Things, is the new herbal after the 1549 herbal of the same name by the gloriously named Leonhard Fuchs. I bet he does. And it uses the kind of language of flowers to talk about all kinds of feminist and sapphic issues. And this is Blue Hydrangea Mouth, and it starts with a fun flower fact. English men in the 1800s used to send hydrangeas to women who rejected them, accusing them of frigidity. Bodies are conspicuous, divisible. The guidebook and idea of deluge queerly. Your kumbaya is shit. Bodies are intelligence disfigured, excruciated, constituted, a clumsy scripture of flowers pouring out of your mouth, inverted and fake. The body is another name for snake handler. Consecration, anamnesis, communion, ransacked anaphora. I bled through double denim. I drank my embarrassment. Bodies are menopause. The telescope recoils from such vile stars. The thumb frayed from sucking. When they speak, my hair gets caught in their compliments. I mean, his compliments get caught in my teeth. I mean, my crooked hippocampus. my widening geary. This body is hip bones connected to the calcified beyond pivot receptacle of regimes. Bodies will cohere in a place of vulgar unfolding, pursuant to sabotage transcendent in chief. We are talking about bodies, not the pig soldier Tory as parody or apparition, but the body, expansively lit, its mutilated ardor. Step out of their feebly militarized aesthetic. An obscenity should open you like the curb opens your shin. What can be extracted from a body? Landscapes, enthusiasms, gristle. The body is all exit and no strategy. I mean, here in my feminized skull mask forced under pressure, a spectacular ozone lewd between teeth. There are flowers around the form the body assumes in language. What might arouse relation? When they say subject, fabricated, stagnant and intact, the subject doesn't look like us. There is nothing allegorical. The capillary summons, the cauterized pores, everything that befalls a body. Task forces, industrial zones, border patrols, assembly lines, the accretion of gravity. Body attempts to speak, limbs twitch in legally binding semaphore affidavits gagged on sprouting through the throat. To peel a stone, to break a sentence like a seed, to be a body, a curriculum of flowers, a clause of flowers, blue ordnance, blue affordance, blue school. From the mouth, that eerie of incision, in the mouth, the whole body, most susceptible, grey. So I'm probably only going to do two more and then I think I'll fuck off because I feel like you'll all have had enough by then. This is The Romance of the Rose, brackets, redux. So the medieval poem, The Romance of the Rose, is a kind of allegory for women winning female affection. So this is a hot new modern take on that, sort of. I spent a lot of time in the Parker Library at Cambridge trying to flirt in an embarrassing way. So that's the subtext to this poem. A love poem, parried, after Sappho, if you must, being always a situation and rarely a comedy. A rose worked over, a solved rose, a rose unfolding like the meager trill of salary, a trickle-down rose touted, a haunting rose hyped, an obvious rose decidedly sublime. A poem in which rose is the organizing pronoun, the pale pink rose of sinister pride, the blue rose of martyred chivalry, the red rose of insidious prick-song, the off-white rose of Nazi smack talk, the yellow rose of hindsight, the black rose of cynical allegory. It was, and it wasn't roses, a kilted tool repeating itself, her inventory of veils. A swag rose, a bling rose, her mouth was a heaven of raw pins, as she fixed a rose to her dropped jaw. I saw her, drew the corset of my long COVID tighter. Mongrel rose, dog in the apothecary. Rose's girl crush, a crushed girl, said, not courtly love, you twit. A rose for chamber lectures, poem as a catalogue of believable roses, everybody endlessly named and ushered. Rose of any acted excess, the laboured rose of being misunderstood, volatilized tease of a rose, brat rose, trash rose, a laden yokel, a reckoning rose, the wasp mutely humbled by its poser's perfume. A lean obituary rose, a rose of straggling iams. I saw her impuked, all the boisterous twaddle of metaphor. That is, the rose is both the symbol and the gesture. Men are mainly screwing and confused. The doomsday cult of a rose disowned, a rose avenged, a nemesis, an expert, a patron saint beheaded, a grabbed pussy of a rose, the two-dimensional rose of romantic subplots, the feel-good rose of discount chocolates. That is the long con of the rose, the dusty, sulking rose of manuscript marginalia, a stalker's wilting tantrum, a ponderous syndromal flower. A rose of reeling willingness, persuaded, plied, appeased. I saw her and I, spike moss, the impostor rose of Jericho. Oh, sauntering rose improperly pleased. Oh, risks rosette, lushly purposed, crutch of a rose, clutch of a rose, grubbing rose, gag reflex rose, the handgasm rose of stand your ground. A love poem, scattergun baroque, the cheesy decal of a rose, formula rose, rose procedural, rose eternal, the fox erotics of a rose. She was a rose clinician, she sequenced this rose. My desire as a furtive one-liner rose. It has been too long. It has been too long. So that's a thing that I did. Yeah, I'm going to do this. This is a long one, but it's the last one. So you're doing very well. You've been very patient. Nobody's wandered off or made a cup of tea or pelted the screen with Virtual Tomato. So I'm very grateful for that. This is called Let Us Know. It's sort of the form of a kind of prayer using the language of flowers to talk about intergenerational trauma. Woo-hoo! I'm just going to shut up and read the poem because I'm not selling it. Okay. Let us know. The absolute against enclosure, crush, progenitor aesthetics. Sing the psalm of the snail, the psalm of the slug. Let us live to lodge our mic drop in their windpipe. Stood up in the grimacing selfie of immortalized harm no more. Let us live. By Blackstaff and by Lagan. By the sign of the crow, the sign of the cross. By the gantry on the gurney, sprawled amid a sweet debris of cresses, Sweeney's sedge, the adder's tongue. By broom and barren brome, by cheatgrass, chestgrass, quakegrass, wheatgrass, wheatgrass, downy and drooping. What is nature after all? The totaled meadow, its yield of trashy obsoletes, those tall and loathly larrikins, this drunken health of weeds. Let us come home. A nod at the point of a hastily tabled motion, with 7 shades of blessing beaten into us, knocked out of us, not flogged, not flayed, not fettled or fixed for lud work or for muck job, the spatulate grasp of a hand, carpal tunneled into permatemp, not with a warrant out in our non-event, or paranoia's dish rag whimsy, party as a fucking verb. Without rainbows, if we want. Let us, despite her escalations, her pall of finitudes and skid marks, her calendar of strangulations, string bests and supremacist lynchings, the amplified pleasantries blared in the face, her voice a broiling tar of sound, on us, 3 sheets to spatchcock, spat out, choked on, nonetheless. Let us come, the gut bursting bitter, our gaze bruised where it broke on her. We are coming now. Through the bricked up hallelujah of any straining mouth, the lung leached and wetly levelled by stitchwort, skullcap, stone crop, sheep spit, their heather hampered dead in the splitting greatcoats of their cud, their grammar of flats and shock. Everyone will welcome us, hold us in their bowl of relapse and betrayal, where a ditch was a gauntlet and a manger, where we would reach askew and coppered hand toward the soaking light. We are also her children. Oh, those clean living converts of barley, those numbered baldies, that government of galloping pockets. They might not love us, but they will see us. They will say our names in the hushed tones proper to irreverent conspiracy, but they will say them. Angels of irrational asylum only perceived through a grifter's squint. And all of them dark resolutions rifted into life behind our stride. Let us now return. Forgive them the perverse event of their folly, or if not forgive, set to one side. We will hold each other by the hand, by the hair, by the humours, heat, grief, the swimming roar of your pulse or mine. Let us now be braver than we were in 98, in 89. And not in guilt, like some spendthrift confessor, in nerve and circulating murmur, not hunkered in recovery, but in love. You fucking gam with love. Thank you.
Thank you, Fran Lock. That was super wonderful. The rose in there taking off into the wonder. Someone said angsty power. All right. Thank you. Moving on to our next Brit, Richard Price. Richard's collections explore the contemporary as a space of ultra-materialism in which overconsumption both expresses and contends with displaced patterns of affection. Most recently, these include his book Late Gifts from Carsonet, which somehow manages to be eco-poetry, political satire, and a reflection on the layered childhood we might all experience as we go through life. Its companion is Tenderness, spelled with an I, like it's going to catch on fire there, from Wild Pansy Press in 22, a new take on the sonnet and on dating apps. Richard also edits the little magazine, Painted, Spoken. Please welcome our next guest, Richard Price.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, I was a bit late, so I'm sorry about that. Can you hear me okay? You getting me? Okay, great. So I'm going to read from almost all from a book called Moon for Sale, which came out a few years ago. This first one is called Snail Mail, and it's really putting those two ideas together, the idea of a messenger mail and snail. So it's a kind of visual image that goes through the history that this poem is trying to describe. The snail becomes a kind of angel, but only in a kind of practical way. So an angel is another name for messenger. That's what it means, messenger. And it's for Peter Manson, who is a wonderful poet from where I came from, the west of Scotland, Glasgow, that kind of place. Snail mail. Glisten of hand-drawn monorails, slop stream time-lapse, roller coaster teenagers, helmets oversize, slipped back. The communal garden daredevil is approaching the speed of drool. And the message is, I was a spiral of scroll in a polished slipcase. I was a lip case, I was a lip. I was illumination initially. Security, mortality in Mary's kitchen garden. The children raced me, jabbed me, off vellum, Mary's favorite, dabbled then dictated. Now wash your hands. I was inked, the bruise from a signet ring. I was a signet ring. I was marginalia on incunabula. A silent type succored me with sage, stamped my shell to test my blood. And the message is, the message? I was a gastropod gargoyle. I was dribbling yet more silver on the double-funded quad. The kids weren't sluggish, but they knew slime, grip, command. I was a nest of panna-raisins. Stomach foot was sweet tooth, built on cane, armored, top of every crop. I was persuasive. I was percussion. An @ sign, carbon copying itself, counting the cost in the sponsored hospitality suites, devising mimeoverse with machines of pharmacists, secretaries and clerks. I was the history of natural art, English as a foreign language. I was the anti-school mag, solemn and spiral binding. And the messages? And the message? I was a seamless body suit with sci-fi backpack, a he stroke she. You decide. Maybe there was something about the inner ear. I misheard it, a circular argument. I was opencast mining, a land tattoo as curse and naturalized utility. This squiggly jewelry is the best St. Thomas Day I've ever had. And the message is, and the message. I was click through an email preposition where it's at, but never provably in. I was a simple fractal, a future fossil. I observed protocol, felt transfer in all good faith. Daylight had to be saved. I was nocturnal. I cooked electric. I was garbage in, voltage out. The world warms, but the human temperature is cooler. Greed looms out of scale, beyond watch or word. I am a lay observer. I'm low, obsessed, observed. In sub-zero delirium, I occupy yet a high aquarium of frozen kiss and curve. I am a propagation of the absurd. Still, this glass tank of baby tanks, I find your reference to offensive will have its render. I'm angelic, a scream saver, flicker after viscous flicker, sleeps up on collateral children, fixes their unfixable faces on their deadpan corpses. I am slow-mo in real time, as if perpetual, forever dissolving in the weather in your area. And the message is, 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 message is. Oh, thank you, thank you. I'll take claps. Yeah, I'll take this. I'll take this. I like the virtual when you get claps. When you're live in poetry, you don't get claps. I'm a simple person. I like the claps.
The claps are good. I'm just wondering if either of my co-hosts would like to introduce who is up next, or I can do it.
I'm not finished. I'm not
Oh,
finished.
I'm so sorry. I just thought you were just enjoying the applause. Apologies. I thought the long pause is
I
usually
was told for 15 minutes. I'm going to stick to that, if that's okay with you.
We were loving it. I thought it was a bit short, but I'm like, oh, just go.
I just paused to take in the credit. That was a mistake. Inaccessible island. Choose your island. I'm on the island today. You can't come because we can't both afford it. You can't come because you have to finish the True War contract. You can't come because it's a century of selling wives on the supply island. You can't come because it's a century of buying wives on the supply island. You say I'm a she-male, but I too have my price. X is most certainly Y. Complex equations are slippery on your tongue. You hiss them. You whisper them. You kiss as if you don't want to know what you know. You overstand everything. Your secret's a secret. You know, I always keep myself to myself during a crossing. I'm on the island today. You can't come because they don't allow wheelchairs on every day with the word day in it. English is the language of international law. I'm on the island today, but you can't come because that would be tourism. You can't come because I'm missing you too much. They won't let me cash in longing. The machines just distribute sweetie wrappers and IOUs and birth certificates, all through gritted teeth. I'm on the island today. There's one bird here that's flightless. It forages like a mouse, like an elderly man, like an elderly woman. It forages like an elderly mouse, like a young man. It forages like a young woman, all chewing gum to concentrate. It wears a heavy coat made of antique black feathers. They're stitched, but you can't see the thread. We are ugly and we are perfect. I'm on the island today. Come as fast, come as fast, come as fast, as fast, as fast. Medicate to lessen. Medicate to lessen what's intimate in sorrow, or talk it over. All this choice in reasons in the render, and it's just between you and no one in particular, a value one-to-one, faith in a reflecting surface. I confess, no inner life to speak of, and a thirst for outerness, from sip to gulp, a zeptosec. So multiply, still no quench. Sensation consumption, max and no check. Where's that exteriority heading? Paradiagnose and park it. Self-drug. In any case, less self, thanks. And a quest for structures of the collective. I know. The good future is old-fashioned. Belonging to sharing needs activation. It doesn't scratch a plan for let's get off this planet. There's so much space together. A fine car pursuit, screech of post-production. Keep going. They're close, gaining. They're close, shape-shifting. Like light to the function of light. They're a liquid air acceptance. That kind of government. The mobilized layers stuff mouths with all a bit harmless. So much dust you don't see the pyroclastic flow. Viscous tides of it with the menace. Viscous tides of it and that confidence. Viscous, but they're saying just breathe this clothy slick in. It's natural. Grab yourself a leg up. Grip justifies grip. Use your stealth. What royalize? Can this weight, this velocity be used? It doesn't start with choice, with the unit you, how anyone might feel. Privilege polices the presets, trumpets its come the innocent equal opportunity, just join in. It's a way of lifestyle, a shield formation, the self-special, aggrandized gangs hoarding elegance and give the hordes a kicking, example serves. Etch a plan for let's get off this planet. There's so much inner space out there together. A quiet river. Melancholy knows the interior of slow. Melancholy knows what it wants to know. Inertia, yearning, waiting, longing, a quiet river's stepping stone. Quiet river's undertow. Ribbons tacked to a shaking tree. Ribbons racked, weather bleached. Prayers and curses with a wrinkle run. Marriage, please, save my son. A quiet river flows right past. Quiet river to the last. Thirst at a rate of thou shalt nots. Thirst too late for beauty spots. Space much more than all too much. Space too close, no speech, no touch. A quiet river on the screen. A quiet river's deadweight sheen. Melancholy knows what it wants to know. Melancholy knows the inside of slow. Inertia, yearning, waiting, longing. A quiet river, a walk alone. Quiet rivers, stepping stones. And I will finish with a poem called The Candles. The Candles. And these are the candles you put in a birthday cake and you say a wish, but you don't say it. You've got to keep it secret. That's quite important. It's not going to work if you say it. I was quite interested in language that has to be silent. Has to be silent. Yeah, you were going wrong. You have to keep things silent. And some things you have to say, and they can't just be written down. A spell's not going to work if you just read it silently. It has to be said. And a recipe, it's not going to work if you just read it, you know. The candles. The face is not quite silent, lit as if here's the first kindling at a cave mouth. Is there a hand? There is a hand on your shoulder. You're surrounded. Everyone's wish is you're thriving. Obvious as kind eyes, but thank yous later. A lifetime ample. Simple, simply breathe. Breathing is the first best of us. Breathe out, but quickly now. Blow, as softer breath could magnify as combustion. Accept the reverse, a single-purpose dream. Quickly now. All data says you could let dissipate your secret. I say tender, in hesitancy, or declaring, betray your spell by honesty. My hand is on your shoulder always. Or time is you need no one, or thank a better guardian when your loving equal watches with you. Floor the air. Your lungs make song of everything, but now make no tune, or sing the first and last note, just, same in the one, full. Already the witnesses age. Some entered absence in the adding of another year's small candle. Blow the tiny flames, leaf of light. And here's the slender smoke, aspirated carbon, rising above all living hydrocarbons, blinking to acknowledge all in this gathering, expanding, dwindling, and willing you whatever is a companion in all you wish. And that's me. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Richard. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And now we are delighted to hear from Katy Evans-Bush, who's the author of two poetry collections published by Salt, Me and the Dead and Egg Printing Explained, the book of essays Forgive the Language, which Penned in the Margins came out with in 2015, and Broken Cities from Doorstop Smith, which was a winner for the Poetry Business International Book and Pamphlet Competition. Katy's latest collection, Joe Hill Makes His Way into the Castle, from CB Editions, was one of the Guardian's best poetry books of 2024. Katy writes a Substack called A Room of Someone Else's and works as a freelance editor and poetry tutor. Thanks so much for coming, Katy, and thanks so much for bringing your friends.
Hi, well, thanks for asking me to. Yeah, something must have happened with poor Steve tonight. I don't know, but so it's disappointing to miss him. But Fran and Richard, those were amazing readings. Yeah, and I'm just going to read. I'm going to read from the book. That one. That's the new one. I say new, it's a year, but like time goes slowly. It's like a little snail messenger, isn't it, in the poetry world? Time. So it still counts as new-ish. So the concept of the book, it's like a sort of concept album, this book. I wrote it in kind of between 2020, I mean, I've lost track, kind of 2 to 3. Is that about right, Fran? You were there. It was the aftermath. You know, we had really brutal lockdowns in the UK, like actual, like where everything was closed and you couldn't go anywhere at all. And it was just brutal, you know, during that time. And then we sort of got back to what we were thinking was going to be back to normal. But instead, it was just hideous with, you know, the fall of Afghanistan and then the invasion of Ukraine and all this kind of crazy stuff that was going on with the Tory government over here. And it was just ghastly. You know, it just seemed like the world was getting worse and worse. And I wasn't writing anything that I was very happy with. So the concept of the book is that I had a very old, beaten up, falling to bits copy of the collected poems of Kenneth Patchen. which I bought, who's almost completely unknown in this country, except now that I've brought his name out into the light, it's getting a little better known. But I had this book since I was 15 or something, and I've already replaced it, so don't worry. I do still have his collected poems, but I just cut it up and I cut phrases out that just grabbed my eye, just like put them into a little box, and I used them. I would like draw just a few out of the box and use them as a kind of stepping stones to write a poem around. Yeah, and it worked. So, and the poems all have numbers rather than titles, so they're all called From Lines by Kenneth Patchen, number whatever it is. So I'm just going to introduce them by the number because I don't have titles. And because I chose this set list today, kind of based on, it's almost like little tarot cards or something, isn't it? Or like a little Ouija board. I'm using it as like a guide to the moment, right? I just chose the ones that really spoke to me right now in terms of where we are at right now rather than 3 years ago. So here's number 3. That corn really is as high as a dictator's eye. I had a book from the 1940s and it sang nigh falutin. Oh yes. It talked about all the nations, but I couldn't believe a word of it. Not now. We've seen what happened next, and there's no antidote, no amulet, no way to prevent being charmed. Outside, the sun is shining, and I can hear some talking, a little plane, children playing, a pretty hubbub. We've seen what people can do. Yesterday they tried, we knew it wouldn't take long. They tried to untell the untrue fairy story, but they only made it more so. We eat ourselves. Bombs, body parts, blood, dead children, and dead soldiers. Nothing new can be told. Nation of nations swears revenge. Shush, babies. We'll sing you a little cannibal's bedtime song. And this is number 14. They don't really even need introductions individually because I think that the content is sort of self-explanatory, and I wrote them all just in a kind of white heat. So this is number 14. The origin of this and this, about which we know nothing, becomes its own folkloric meaning and open to interpretation. Thus, nothing. We are a mystery to our own mothers. That isn't politics. The origin we understand, though not sportsmen ourselves. Luckily, we can predict what our machine guns will do. Our comfort now is how white and still the hours before they deliver all the others unto our only remaining cathedral, and our eternity goes sliding down the hills. All our home runs, our grandparents' heroes, our foregoing pennants, and Joe DiMaggio's and ritual seasons. Fighter or not, the one rule seems to be you must meet the stick with your willing body. And I've just arranged them sequentially. Anyway, so this one is number 17. The previous one talks a little bit about, mentions folklore. This one is kind of based on a folk song, and I guess you'll figure out which one it is eventually. It takes place in Texas. There's your hint. Number 17. Rockabye, poor ladies. The world was ever cruel and wrong. This time it goes down singing a cruel cowboy song. There's a pretty little lady in the state of the Lone Star and a state of do and redo, and she'll have to travel far. And her heart is cold as clay in a cloud of white linen, and her heart is hard as clay, for the state says she's sinning. But sin is a form of moral threat and has no place in law. Her heart is cracked as clay, and she can't travel. She's poor. Your problem is one of sex, says a man in Stetson hat who has none. She thinks that's funny enough to break my heart if I still had one. But the blood's been drained away from it, and she knows she's alone. She sings, boxers always hit harder when there are women around. There's a bounty hunter keeping watch to sue whoever helps her. She must speak in code for transport, money, blood, and shelter. You can sit down and listen, but she'll keep her story short because anyone who sympathizes with her could end up in court. And the thing about a civil suit is it keeps the state clean. It's divide and conquer, it's dirty tricks, it's the subroutine, it's informers, it's Stasi, it's the shame of the county. And no man's life can be beautiful if even one man gets this bounty. Oh, lady, poor lady, please sit pretty tight while help is smuggled in by stealth of night. Too late for you, maybe, but not too late for your sister. Just tell her, just sit tight till the soul plasma gets here. You're just a young lady in the back streets of Laredo. Oh, young lady in Laredo with your life still ahead. But this redo is a no-do, and your coat hanger's waiting, and this law will still be working if you wind up dead. As I say, it just keeps getting more and more topical, right? I thought that, foolishly, thought this book might become dated. Little did we know that. So here's number 23. The body of paper lives between the pages of a book, like a star pressed into a child's hand, its different parts marked in dotted lines. White as a page, it's seen its own ghost. There is no hand, and what, after all, are words? This one's number 26. The Grand Palace of Versailles. What a microcosm of trickle down. No art by any form, by any means, by recording or by electronic sampling, or by carving or chiseling, or by looking or carefully listening, or by any means at all, and resist the pull of money. See the pious patrons down here in the corner. The sense of command has ever, you are fired, been reached, and power needs mostly nothing to take over. Chaos, quick, join hands, and don't create a vacuum. Elements in a harmonious state would slot alongside. Apartments and little houses would lean on each other's shoulders and sleep. And the grass would breathe through the delicate night and the earth underneath. Every pen, every paintbrush, every pixel contains the world, and each molecule follows its own trajectory. Think of all those workshops buzzing. Think of all those little flowers of phosphorus. Men in silk handing over bags of coins. The skilled creators of beauty hard at work. Their children's dinner. And here's number 36. Another short one. How little we cared before it was too late. Our city's hollow beneath the streets. The parks are owned by private corporations. The walls have spikes so the homeless can't sleep. And all of us are living out on the very edge. The rich keep private towns under their houses. Their hands are on the latches of our doors, and we are sick with the dirt of their money. No scrubbing will get us clean of the spores. Oh, I'll come and get you in a taxi, honey. Or would have, back when we could afford a taxi. And just a couple more now. This is number 40. We were always so sure of ourselves. We had something they didn't have, the warmongers, the old men left over from last time, so very sure of themselves, who had dropped the bomb, won the war. It was enough for us to be innocent. We held the upper hand. We had no suit with the common mysteries of our own human nature. As if there is only one war anywhere, the unjust war, and all you had to do was stand in front of a tank holding a flower. As if we didn't know what they do to people who stand in front of tanks. As if it wasn't the product of our own ridiculous safety. Cocooned and unembarrassed to be so naive, so arrogant, to think we could bend the world to our childish ideals. What's the value of innocence when the dream falls to the ground, when you're stepping over the bodies of the dead? What means your line in the sand when the sand is black with blood? When pacifism means helping the enemy, destruction, death, the wound unhealed. As if you wouldn't weep for the heathen dead, just boys, and no more heathen than you or me. You softy, weep and remember love above all, and put your war boots on. Number 43. Yeah, and then I'll just read one more after this one. So number 43. A fiend slays the children of the messenger. A minor fiend denies them lunch in school holidays. Of course, we understand they're poor in term time, sure, but they've always managed, in their eventfully mortal place, to live somehow. Who cares if they're thin as reeds? Come the day of rabblement, the rabble feeds. A fiend will slay the messenger of the children's needs. The children are too demoralized to run amok, and in the meantime, the party starts at 7 sharp. The piper's paid at midnight, but nobody gives a fuck.
I like that.
And number 48, I'm going to read number 48, and then I'm done.
Okay,
And
sure.
this one actually has a little epigraph. I've given Kenneth Patchen a whole epigraph to himself.
I was kind of excited that you were going to end with fuck, actually.
Were you?
Yeah,
Did I say it with conviction?
totally.
There we go. So he's got a poem called The Haunted City, which contains the lines, "Yet there will be peace in certain parts of the city, sonnets dripping like moss from the walls, women holding their gifts out, arms, thighs, their quick song." So yes, I've written this poem. This body of blood and flesh, this gift, this female body about which even now so little is known and so much contested, so many contracts drawn up by men. It is the battleground in every battle of your life. A geography more advanced than the most sophisticated cartographer man. Just imagine victory in this war. If we are our bodies, we have autonomy over them. If we have not autonomy over them, we are not our bodies. In this case, we exist as lifeless but sentient entities, roped to someone else's barrel. You could write a sonnet about this, maybe. Oh, actually, hang on. No, I was wrong. Can I read one more?
Of
I
course.
thought that was a funny place for me to have stopped. Do you know, I only worked this out 3 hours ago or something. 45, I'm going to finish with. I think it's more appropriate. This darkness has lasted 2 months, and today is the summer solstice, a day of maximum polarity. We're at our closest to the sun, while the others are at their farthest possible alienation. This darkness has been all mine. Nobody else needs to share in it. I wander down the allotments. The only evil is doubt, it said, and I am made of it. Show me my own name on a piece of paper, and I won't be sure. I look everything up these days. Loose along its edges, close by the water, I count a lot of blossoms. The allium, an otherworldly purple pointillist globe emerging from its garlic chrysalis. The chamomile and roses and the marigolds and foxglove, past which starving foxes run. The darkness is all mine. The only evil is doubt, and even that's wrong. Manifold grasses have grown knee-high under shaggy seed heads they can barely support. Spiky like wheat, some rushy velvet. The pods, the burrs, the fronds. I'm the one who's loose around the edges. They don't sit by the pond and worry whether they're good enough at being grass. This world is finished, done, and the sun sets blood red on this, her day in the sun. There you go. That's it.
Thank you, Katie. Her day in the sun. Well, thank you all of you for this fantastic reading tonight, Fran, Richard, and Katie. And now we're going to hear from John Wessick, who's written over 1 million words in poems, short stories, and novels.
Wow.
Hundreds of his works have appeared in journals such as the I-70 Review, New Verse Review, Patterson Literary Review, and Unlikely Stories Mark V. He's also a regional editor of the San Diego Poetry Annual and host of the Gelato East Fiction Open Mic. His latest book, Redutio ad Absurdium, is a collection of parodies. He lives in Manchester, New Hampshire, and longs for the gene editing to bring giant wombats back from extinction. His website is johnwesick.com.
Hi, thanks. Well, yes, here is the new book. Yay! Book of Parodies, Reductio ad Absurdum. I'll read a little bit of one story called The Spokes Critter Killings. Detective Dirk Wagmore dumped his coffee cup in the trash before donning nitrile gloves. The forensics team had been on site long enough to wiggle into their bunny suits, cover the body, and cordon off the area with police tape. Victim some kind of cartoon rodent, his partner said. Fishermen found his body in the river and called it in. Detective Liz Torres wore a jacket that covered the 1911 pistol chambered in 10 millimeters she wore on her hip, but nothing could cover her disdain for Mexican food. It didn't take Dr. Freud to realize that the heiress to the Guillermo's Taco franchise had daddy issues. The police academy was her way out of a life of carne asada and refried beans. Once she got her badge, she never looked back. Victim has no ID, but from the animation style, I'd guess he was in his mid-40s. What do we have, Joyce? Wagmore asked the coroner, kneeling by the body. Choked to death on a 42-ounce canister of oatmeal. Dr. O'Brien pulled back the sheet to expose the rodent's face and neck. Bruising indicates it was forced down his throat. Lack of swelling means he can't have been in the water too long. Open sores and bleeding gums indicate the victim had diabetes. Finding his identity is going to be tough. Cartoons don't have fingerprints. I'm not sure about DNA and dental records. We might try to run the ink through a gas chromatograph. You must not have watched Saturday morning cartoons in the 80s, Wagmore said. That's Lenny, the cornflake chipmunk. He was always running scams to get breakfasts that rodents weren't supposed to have. Looks like we've got ourselves... Oh, don't say it, Wagmore. Torres put her fingers in her ears. A serial killer. Seen this chipmunk before? Wagmore slapped a photo on the bar. Of all the cereal cafes in all the world, Skim City had to be the worst. Even in mid-afternoon, teens with pimply skin, gaunt women with bitter frown lines, and overweight bikers whose denim vest revealed prison tattoos crowded the dimly lit room with their desperate craving for sugar, corn syrup, and carbohydrates. A TV over the dispensers showed an animated Wanda the Woke Walrus emphasizing the importance of inclusive language. The cereal tender picked up the photo. Nah, we don't serve no rodents in here. He was too skinny to be sampling the product. Look again. Wagmore tapped the photo. Hey! A biker sprang from his stool and grabbed Wagmore by the shoulder. The man said he didn't see him. Torres swung the biker around. After two quick slaps, she captured one of his wrists in a wrist lock and pointed her big pistol at his eye. Nice place you got here. Wagmore showed his badge. It'd be a shame if the health department found some expired cereal containing red dye number 2. We're investigating a murder, so look again. All right, I seen him. The cereal tender wiped spilled milk off the bar. Understand we can't keep rodents out of here if they wear in disguises like top hats, baseball jerseys, or they dress like pirates. I was going on about how he used to be famous and hitting up my customers to buy him puffed rice. Felt sorry for the guy, so I gave him a little oatmeal now and again. When'd you last see him? About a week ago. Said he had some big score that put him back on top. Any idea what? Said something about getting the old gang back together. Thanks, everybody.
John Chipmunk's a serial killer and some Casablanca references. Are you going to show us your gorgeous book you have in the background?
Well, here it is.
The
Yeah,
cover?
there's the cover,
Oh,
and
plug.
there's the back with blurbs and everything. Alien Buddha Press. It'll be online on March 9th, and I have some author copies if you can't wait.
Wow. You can put the info in the chat for everyone, right? Yeah. Excellent. Thank you. Next up, we are going to bring the beat back and get Linda. No one else does it quite like Linda. Linda, how are you?
I'm doing good. How are you? I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, it's lovely to see you. We love when you contribute to Open. So what have you got for us?
Okay, here I go. All right, this one's probably more spring oriented, but I wrote it in the winter, so I must be yearning for spring. The veil. A garment passed down through generations, sustenance for life, lies within a copper urn. Beatrice, the chosen one, stands outside in tall grass. A veil drapes over her head, hangs to her ankles. Its intricate weave, flowers, winged insects, birds, veil worn to celebrate the coming of spring. Honeybees, hummingbirds, dragonflies fly under the veil. A light on her face distribute pollen, while the veil mysteriously emits a fine mist to accompany pollinating process. This ritual continues for 6 hours. Winged creatures come and go, are replaced by new swarms. Beatrice appears entranced and raptured, yet solemn, except for her eyes. Her eyelashes lids are heavy laden with pollen, honeycomb. Her eyes rapidly swirl, allowing the ritual to continue. The veil, covered in yellow pollen, drapes heavily like a velvet robe. Winged creatures flutter, kiss her cheeks before exiting. Once the ritual finishes, she unveils, lies on her back in the grass, intoxicated by her role as goddess of the meadow, garden, grass. The veil will not attract visitors unless Beatrice is shrouded. Hours pass, she arises, walks to creek, drinks handfuls of water, washes her face. Pollen and honeycomb rinse into the stream. The veil is placed within the copper urn. When the high tides return and the blue moon shows itself, the ritual is repeated. Earth's sacred, ragged plain cries out to the veil, which elicits a signal to Beatrice, disciple of Gaia, goddess of earth. That's it.
Wow. I feel like I'm with one of the Attenboroughs, the poetic Attenborough, the pollinating process. I loved it. It was so great. I mean, I'm still in kind of summer here, so I am coming from a place where I'm kind of warm and happy, but I know that there's been a lot of snow from some of the people that I spoke
Oh
to.
yeah, we're living in an ice castle here in New England.
That's what I heard. So I think everyone will love that. It'll thaw everyone's hearts out a little bit. Thank you so
Okay,
much.
thank you.
One of our faves is next, the vivacious Vicky. We never know what she's going to give us. It could be anything. Vicky, what have you got?
Hi there. It's a reference to the artist Steve Klein's creation of a new colour, which was called International Klein Blue, and always makes me think of lapis lazuli in liquid form. It's called pattern number 63471. The search for transcendence at Sa-e Sang, to represent the void, trapped outside space and time, emptied of all matter. Judith notes how cold, dark and gloomy it is. Isn't that blood hovering over the surface? She asks. There is an illusion of deepest velvet. Ask me no questions, he says, but she insists. Tell me more. Tell me more. And that's it.
Amazing. We love it. We want more color poems. It makes me think like there's a great Robert Browning poem that has lapis lazuli in it as well. So we want more. Maybe you got to go to the paint shop and get, I used to love doing that, little samples with all the names. You've got to like do a whole book of like paint poems. That'd be amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
And a canonical reference, it can only lead to DeWitt, I think. So DeWitt, what have you got? He's always something great. And you know I love it when he wears his orange. So we're in for a treat.
Well, I think, can you hear? Okay.
Yep.
I think I've been influenced by Mark's Woodwalks. This is a new poem called Astonished. My wife and I climb the wooded trail adjoining McLean's Hospital, retreat of Robert Lowell and other Boston poets, wondering if mental patients find solace here. We reach the upper border and Pine Alley, a level, long corridor of tall pines, but this time choose the path down from woods along a high-grassed rolling meadow. Its acres treeless, except for one gnarled oak in the center. The path is worn, but empty now, drops between meadow and woods, then at bottom curves left and reaches a junction where a sign warns bikers to dismount, since each direction is blind to other until too late. Did I mention this is fall? Leaves varicolored, blustery winds, sky overcast and threatening rain. My wife prefers to lag behind, troubled by sore knees and feet. Instead of longer path around, I point to wooded entrance, plunge ahead and step, careful to keep balance over a boulder's face. Foliage thick and new incline. My wife calls, "Don't slip, careful," as she follows. From other visits, I remember the exit into open light, how the split path merges and climbs to a plateau where more paths meet. But never like this. As I emerge, full sun comes out, igniting leaves which seethe and shake while the distant forest tree line tosses from ghostly traveling eddies like a play of piano's keys. "Hurry, come see," I shout behind, but she's too late. Sun dies, winds fade, light rain begins.
Well, I want to say if two roads diverged in a yellow wood, do it. Did you take the road not taken? I love it. I think it's a beautiful piece. It reminds me of being in the Lake District actually and realizing walking around there how far Wordsworth actually walked. Like you know he's a walker, but until you get there and you see the distance, it's crazy. So I loved how that made me feel all in the moment. So thank you. It's always beautiful to hear your work. And now we have our famous duo. We have Cindy and Bob. The only way that you can end and open is with this fearsome two. So Sin, what have you got, Brooklyn Badass?
I think I'm going to do one of my I Am the Girl poems.
Yes, I love those. They're some of my faves.
Cassandra and Paul Hetherington sort of copped it and did one of their own. It was better than mine. And
Oh, it wasn't. You're famous for those poems.
Anyway, I probably read this before, but I've revised it a little since then. So I am the girl with the two-step tango. I used to have tangerine tango till I realized that didn't mean anything. So I looked up two-step for the alliteration, and it was there. So I am the girl with the two-step tango. I am the girl with the do-si-do hips. I am the girl with the pirouette and plie. I am the girl with the Bolshoi ballet. I am the girl with the bleeding toes. I am the girl with the low limbo bar. I am the girl with the Hava Nagila, and I've got the Jewish star to go with it. I am the girl with the ring around the rosy. I am the girl with the witch in the circle. And I am the girl with the treasonous feet. Thank you.
Love it. Love your do-si-do hips, Sin. Absolutely. Fantastic lines. Thank you. And we have to end. It's the only good way. It's with Bob, the kitchen laureate, as he's now known. We never know what he's got for us, but he could have information. It could be something else, but it will stay in our hearts until the next Lit Balm. So no pressure, Bob.
No pressure. Laughing. They laugh at the cook because he is not a bear, and at the priest because he is not a tree. They laugh at the dawn because it arrives too late, and at the sea because it cannot be described. They understand that adjectives were the wrong kind of solution, and that the verbs would only arrive once it was too late. Each man who entered, an exception to the rule of pairs.
It's brilliant, right? The delivery, the whole craziness of it. That was a brilliant one. And it had a bear in it for all of the regulars who love a little bear cameo in there. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Some animals.
Mark, Jeff.
So thank you so much again, guys, today for this fantastic show with Richard Price, Fran Lock, and Katy Evans-Bush, and unfortunately missing Steve Eli, but we'll get to him at some stage. Next time we have, on Saturday, March 15, we have Paris Heretics, which includes Jason Stone King, Alison Grace Kohler, Richard Daly, and Carrie Chappell. And thank you so much, guys, for joining us tonight. I'm going to read you one more little thing here, just to cap it off. And this is kind of like to bring it back to the beginning again. This poem is called The First God. Oracles and seers divined, prognosticated, in the greasy entrails of a guttural toad, in the sibilant calls of the pied flycatcher, saw omens in the curdled milk of the fat-tailed sheep, in the scattering grains of seeds and smiting stones, in the cloudbank and her peaks and mountains, and in that lone red-tailed hawk who landed on our shifting sands and soared away with the writhing, bleeding viper hissing in her talons, which is kind of about the way we are today. Thank you, folks, so much for a wonderful reading, and we'll see you next time. And lots of love and poetry in the interim. Thanks. Bye, guys.
Yes. Mwah.